We have two of the most passionate educators in Arvida on this episode. We have Sam Lake and Bailey Greene. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, good to be here.
Let's start off by getting to know you just a little bit. Who are you? Where are you from?
I'm Sam Lake, as you said, and I'm from Windsor, Nova Scotia.
And I'm Bailey Greene, and I'm from Barrie, Ontario.
And what brings you both up to the north?
Weirdly enough, in my B.Ed, we had this speaker come in. She talked about how great the north was, and then I started to get a little interested. And then Ashley and Will, who are also teachers here, they had an Instagram page, Bailey too. I followed them. I was like, oh, that place looks awesome. Maybe I'll apply. And then I did, and here I am.
Do a lot of people go to Arvida from your school?
Yeah. I think the north is a big place for St. FX. We have a lot of people up here, a lot of X-rings around.
Yeah, I think I'm outnumbered. Where are all my British Columbia homies?
We're definitely outnumbering you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
For me, it was COVID and Ash and Will, pretty much. So I graduated 2020, and I was headed elsewhere in Ontario for a job, and then everything was happening COVID-wise, like online and everything, and I didn't want to do that. And then Ash and Will told me there was a job here, and I was hoping my parents would tell me it was a bad idea.
They didn't.
And they didn't.
Your parents were encouraging.
Oh my gosh, I went home, I was like, how do you guys feel about Nunavut? And my mom's like, that's so cool. I'm like, no, you're supposed to say no.
What are they usually like with your decisions?
Unfortunately, they're really supportive. So they let me do whatever I want, even if I think they think it's a bad decision. And then I ended up here, and I think everyone kind of thought it was going to be like a 1-year thing, and now it's year 4. So
that is the typical response. We do see a lot of teachers come up here for a very short period of time, and then they take off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both of you, how many years have you been here for now?
This is my 3rd year. I also came up saying, oh, you can do anything for a year. I'll be there for a year. I'll come back. And here I am still.
Isn't it insane? I would consider a 3rd-year teacher a veteran.
Yeah.
Like, basically, we're climbing the ranks pretty quick here.
Yeah. This is year 4, and I'm like, I feel like I'm pretty, like I've been here for a while.
Yeah, Bailey's a retired vice principal.
Current vice principal.
Oh, you're a current vice principal.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, true. Were you vice principal last year as well?
Yes, I was, yeah.
Oh, and you took it again?
It's a 3-year term. So I was finishing off the VP who had retired. She retired after her first year of her 4-year contract. It was going to be like an acting role, and then turned into 3 years. So I got 1 more year after this one, and then I have some decisions to make about classroom, admin.
What is the transition like? Is it black and white, teacher versus vice principal?
I didn't realize how different they would be, because I think of like principal, vice principal are still in the school, right? So I always assume that they're much more similar to a teacher role than they are. Last year was really tough. Like my first year was tough because it was all learning. It was like I didn't get to be with the kids as much. It was a lot more like adult management, which is not something I have a lot of experience or confidence in, I think, especially like I'm 2 years into my like teaching career, and then I'm taking on a VP role in my 3rd year, which I wasn't sure in terms of like respect, in terms of knowledge that I had, but it's definitely more of an office job. Which I don't know that I want to do forever, but if I'm ever
organizing, is it like trying to move things around?
Yeah, a lot of paper stuff, a lot of like helping teachers with things. But I'm glad it's in a school, because it's one of those things where if I'm ever in a bad mood, I just go to a classroom, or I like roam around the hallways, or I like pull a kid out of class to like hang out and read with them in my office.
Do you have more freedom as a vice principal?
A little bit. Schedule-wise, I can kind of make my own schedule in terms of what I'm doing when I'm doing it. But I find that a lot of my to-do list items for myself get pushed and pushed and pushed, because a lot of like the principal's in charge of the big stuff, like running the school and getting in touch with like kind of the higher ups. And then I've found myself a lot more the day-to-day stuff. So teachers come to me about students. Teachers come to me about their computer. Teachers come to me about parents, things like that. So then I'm dealing with all those things. It's a lot of fire putting out before I can ever get to my stuff. But I do like the freedom of it in terms of if I need to get this done right now, I can do it because I don't have students or a schedule.
I have one last question about vice principal.
Yeah.
Is it if you're insanely busy, like I've noticed the same thing has happened in the high school as well, and it seems like it's just inevitable. Is there any solution to somehow you don't have to deal with problems? You can just focus on your work.
I don't think so.
That's just part of the job.
I think it is. I think it's been nice though because I'm so close to being a teacher. Like because you notice, I don't know if you guys notice, a lot of admin have been out of the classroom for so long, whereas they're a little bit out of touch in terms of like the small daily issues that you deal with in the classroom. I find because I'm so close to being in the classroom that when teachers come to me, I'm like, okay, I do really want to solve this. I'm not really able to brush things off. I think maybe I do a little bit too much sometimes in terms of trying to solve people's problems for them and trying to help them because maybe it isn't as important or dire as some things I need to do. But
do you ever think of like you're like, this is something you could probably figure out on your own?
I do think that sometimes, but and you know what? I think it'll come with experience, right? Figuring out what I need to deal with in that moment, figuring out what I can probably help someone deal with themselves. But for now, I don't know. It's not bad. I like it. Yeah.
Sam Lake has also climbed the ranks as well. She's, what year are you? Did you say again?
My third year.
Third year, and you're a department head of the humanities department.
Yep, that's a new thing, but yes.
And so I think one of the reasons you got this department job is because you're an excellent organizer. You put on great events as well.
Thank you.
You just put on an event yesterday. What does it take to run an event?
There's a lot of different organizational departments, I guess. I try to get the students involved a lot, but one of our issues per se is attendance. So yesterday I organized a spirit day. We had all these last minute things to do with my, I have a special projects class, so we do quite a bit of events around the school. But then I didn't have anybody show up to class, so I was scrambling around trying to do all the work of like 6 people because my students didn't show up. But this is my second year now teaching that class, and we are kind of growing each time, so I'm kind of learning the things that you need to do. There's like getting subs for me sometimes. I had to get one of my classes covered yesterday so I could run some poster making. And then just
How did you find a sub? How difficult was that? Was it difficult?
It wasn't difficult. I just went to see our principal and I said, remember, I need somebody to cover me period 5. She's like, oh yeah, this person's going to be them. Go talk to them. So I was like, okay. But I've really learned to just kind of communicate. These are the things I need instead of, oh, I want this to happen. It just gets done faster.
Right, 100%. Do you work better in a team environment, or do you work better doing most things by yourself?
I think a bit of both. The beginning of the organizing of things, I like to kind of figure things out in my own head first, and then kind of figure out who in my team can do what, I guess. So, like, these A, B, C, D is what needs to be done. Oh, this person's going to do A, this person's going to do B. But I think I can get a little overwhelmed sometimes when it's a full team effort at the beginning. So that's why I kind of like to run things through in my mind first.
Yeah. Another thing too is we just had a staff meeting the other day, and one of the items that was brought up was technology in the classrooms. What are your both thoughts on cell phones in the classroom?
I think they both have their positives and their negatives when they're used in the right ways. I'm a big advocate for them in the classrooms, but also it's definitely annoying per se to tell people to put them away 2 or 3 times. I think you just kind of have to have a system down. My students have learned with me when I'm allowing them to use their phones, they use them in a respectful way, and they know that those privileges will come, but not if they're continually using them in times when they're not supposed to. Plus, they can be very good educational aids. Like, the students love having their phones. Why not use them to aid their learning? That's my opinion, though.
From an elementary standpoint here, personally, in my own brain, I do not think you need a phone until you're out of elementary school. I'm like, why does an 8-year-old need a phone? An 8-year-old does not need a cell phone.
How many of your students have them?
Oh my goodness. My last year teaching was grade 5, and every day I had at least 4 or 5 phones like given to me. Like, so that was my expectation in the class. Like, the kids who brought their phones to school, they brought to me, I kept them in a bucket at my desk. There was no phone usage. Sometimes they would ask if we went outside, but any technology we were using in class, we grabbed like laptops, like we have laptops to use, or we were using the smart board. There wasn't any, and we don't even have Wi-Fi at my school anyways.
What? You don't have Wi-Fi?
Not to hook phones.
Do we have Wi-Fi?
We have laptops.
Oh, laptops
Yeah.
with Wi-Fi.
So we have the internet for the laptops, but in terms of like kids, right?
Oh,
like
right.
a lot of like the kids don't have their data or whatever.
Okay.
So things like that. So I would never expect that if we were doing something academic to use our phones and things. I'm like, we can use these laptops, but I'm like, don't give your grade 3 kid a phone. But some teachers don't operate that way. And then there's kids who keep them in their like pockets, in their jackets in the hallway, because that's what their parents want. But then I'm like, what if you lose that? What if it gets stolen? I don't know. So when I'm in the classroom, it's like, there's no cell phones for me. You're bringing it in, you're giving it to me, because then that way I can keep it safe for you. That way there's no like, oh, it got taken out of my pocket. There's no sneaking of it in desks, because I do see the kids, they bring it in the morning, pull it out of their pocket, put it in their desk.
Have you ever had anyone rebel?
Not really, no.
Eh?
They're pretty agreeable in terms, because if the other kids don't have their phones, why, like, their friends are sitting in their class with them. Like, it's like, like, so if the other kids don't have their phones, and then they're going to sneak on it, and then they're going to get in trouble. You know, there was a parent who was like, well, can we just keep her phone in the office? And I said, yep, for sure. Like, I'm okay with that as long as the kid doesn't have it.
Let's pretend that it is a problem.
Okay.
How would you solve, or how would you discipline, or how would you go about disciplining a student?
About the cell phone?
I'm only using it as, it was one of my next questions, is just
Okay.
what are your strategies for disciplining or correcting behaviors? But as a transition, I'm using this as a transition method. So about let's pretend it is a method, and you want to correct their cell phone usage.
Specifically about the cell phone, because I've made such a clear expectation at the beginning of my school year with my kids, right? Like, I'm not wishy-washy. I'm not like, you can have it, but don't look at it. You can, like, I'm very clear with them in my specific classroom about the expectations of phones. So in that regard, I think because I've made that very clear, and I think because it's being followed, and parents, I've never had a parent issue in terms of my rules regarding cell phones. So I, like, one shot, I'm taking it from you, unfortunately. And it's just kind of this thing where, like, you have all of the time in the world on your phone outside. You're with me for 6 hours a day.
That's a long time.
You can take it at lunch. You don't need a phone when you're 10, Ryan.
Right,
what
yes.
are you doing? Snapchatting your friends? Like, come on.
Yeah.
So,
that is pretty young.
it's, I see, and it's hard to put myself in hypothetical situations, because I had a girl have her phone on her desk one time, and someone told on her, and I said, hey, your phone. She goes, oh, I forgot. And she gave it to me right away.
Is the elementary pretty well behaved all around?
You know what? I think they're learning. And I think that's always my thing with elementary, is the behavior is so forgivable because they are still learning so much. I kind of pride myself on my classroom management and the way that I am able to operate a classroom in this, like, super fair, super fun, but also firm environment. So my kids I always had were pretty good once I kind of, like, had them for a month and a half. Some of the kids are just nutsy cuckoo, right? Because it's like, it's so much fun to be around friends and be in the hallway, but for the most part, we don't have severe behavior issues. And a lot of it, they still have this innocence, right? Where they don't want to be in trouble. Like, kids want to please you still. So we don't have any severe behavior issues other than, like, outliers in the past couple years, but
that's good to hear.
Good, yeah.
I guess it all starts with clear expectations and reinforcements.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Sam, like, what about you? If there was a problem in the classroom, there's a behavior you want to correct, what are your first steps?
As cliche as it sounds, it really does depend on the student. I think now that I'm in my third year in the school, and a lot of the students I've had multiple times, it's pretty clear to me, given certain students, what I need to do next. But they often kind of start with a conversation. What's up? Why are we doing this type of thing? Because trying to figure out, oh, maybe you are like actually sleeping's a problem here. People don't sleep overnight. So it's very clear sometimes students that just haven't slept. And I'd like to like kind of call them out on that sometimes. So it's like, did you sleep last night? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I can tell. Why? You're being very grumpy. It's kind of mean. And then sometimes that like little check will just kind of bring them back. But a lot of the time it's just, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. So then it's a quick reminder. It's like, hey, you're in high school now. Like, we can't just sit around. We're not here to hang out. You got to do your work. Your work gets your grades. You want to graduate. Just like those reminders of why they're here sometimes. Past that, if I can identify it's not something that's going to be solved within my classroom, I use administration, because the students respect the authority that they have, and quite a lot of the time, for me at least, I have found success in sending them to the office. They'll have a conversation there, they'll come back. Sometimes just getting them out of the room for a few minutes too, that's very helpful. They just need a break. I can understand why the class is overwhelming sometimes.
Right. How did you arrive at this conclusion? Was this something you were taught?
I think the whole get to know your students thing has just been preached so much, like throughout my BED. I'm doing my master's now. It's still being preached each and every class. And I think relationships are a really big thing for me. So getting to know the kids and what they need, what they want. Yeah, I guess that was just, that has been told to me was something that stuck. It just made sense. It was the teachers that I had relationships with growing up. Those are the teachers I still remember. But those were also the teachers that I wanted to treat well. So I want the students to treat me well. So I treat them well, I guess.
Was it always this way when you came up? Like when you went on day one? So is day one any different than day 3 years?
Yes, 100% different. I think like I came here right out of college or university, so I was still very young. I did all my practicum in the gym. I hadn't taught high school yet, so it was like completely new scene for me.
Like what grade level was your practicum?
My first practicum was primary to 5.
Oh wow.
Yep, and then my second practicum was 7 to 9.
Hey.
Yep. So
I feel like that is necessary. Like if you know how to teach well the basics, the foundations, you can easily climb up to the high school level and teach it well as well.
Yeah, I think some of those discipline strategies, honestly, and the patience that I gained with the younger students has been very helpful. Discipline was a hard thing for me right away. Like I was kind of that teacher that was like, okay, just don't do that next time. Or, oh, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. But now it's like lay down the law right away, set the expectations, the culture in the classroom, and the students just, their behavior starts better earlier for me now.
When you both arrived, how did you know what to teach? Like first of all, how long in advance did you get to know what you're going to teach? How did you understand what you're going to teach? And I guess let's start there.
You want to go first?
I'll go. I knew I had grade 4/5, and I had asked a little bit, being like, what do I need to come with? What do I need to plan? What do I need to, and it was very much like, oh, you'll just do it when you get here, you know, like I was sent an article about the IQ principles, it was like, read this over, this is how our school operates. And then I was sent a couple links to the old curriculum documents, which then that next year, the K to 6 got a new curriculum. I know that that's not necessarily the case for you guys, but I was sent a link to the relevant curriculum documents at the time to kind of look through, but I had no, like, I wasn't told. It was just like, you'll get it when you get here. When you get here, we'll figure that out, you know? And I was I was extremely apprehensive about that, but it also, in a way, it was kind of nice to not have any, not any expectations, but not be given, oh, well, you need to plan this, and then I show up and that wouldn't have worked, right? Like if I had been told what I needed to plan for, I would have planned for my experience and the students that I've worked with who are Nova Scotian students and Ontario students, and what I would have planned and set up for a 4-5 class in elsewhere wouldn't have worked. So I'm almost glad that it was like no, you'll deal with it when you get here. I go, okay.
And when you did get here, did somebody help guide you through the process?
Not as much as I would have liked, but I also think, which is tough, because I think that there are people who need a little more guidance than others. And I think, like, some people can thrive regardless if they're given kind of that boost up and that guidance. And I think I figured it out pretty well, but I can see how the lack of kind of, like, you show up and it's like, all right, this is your class. This is what we use. This is the curriculum. And it's like, I figured it out, but I can see how that can be a struggle for other people. So, but no, there was not a lot of guidance. There was another teacher who had taught in another community, and she liked to be helpful, but then it was one of those things where those people who, they think they're being helpful at a certain point. I'm like, no, now I'm good now. Now you're just inundating me. But
so, like, you weren't given any resources, or like you would like what would be nice is if there was a tower of resources so that you have all these different options of how you want to teach, depending on the classroom that you have. You weren't provided any of those sort of ideas. Do you guys have a file sharing program? We on the high school side, we have this beautiful Y drive where we all can upload our folders. It's not quite that organized, but it is there. Do you have anything like that?
We do. It's not as, I haven't found it as useful in the past. Now in my role, I've been making sure I'm putting things on there. But and now that you're asking me all these questions, I'm like thinking back to my first year. I'm like, how did I figure this out? There was a teacher, like I will say there was a teacher. She had taught in a different community. This was her first year in this community, because most of my school staff are Inuit and they're local and they've been at it for a while. They teach mostly in Inuktitut. Most of them are graduates of the NTEP program. We just have very different backgrounds. And they were kind of used to everything. There was they don't have a lot of change at my school in terms of new people coming in. So I don't know that they had anything really set up for new Southerner teachers coming in, because it doesn't happen often, if that makes sense.
Right.
I just kind of figured it out now that I'm thinking back to it.
You just keep showing up day after day, and you eventually figure it out.
I feel bad for the kids in a way, because every day was probably something different, but it was the process of, okay, I'm going to try this today. Oh, that didn't work. We're trying something totally new the next day. Until I figured it out, it maybe took a couple months, maybe till Christmas, until I was like,
wow, that's it? Good for you.
Oh, right? I was like, oh no, he's looking at me like, yeah, it was about until Christmas when I was like, no, I think I know these kids. I think I know. But
there's some teachers up here that have been teaching for 3, 4, 5 years and still haven't figured it out.
Yep.
So I think it took me probably 3 years. So good for you. That's amazing. Sam, when you first arrived, what was your process like?
Well, I was just applying for any and every job that was available in this community, really. My teachables...
teaching positions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Teaching positions, yeah. Not anything else, just teaching. But my teachables were for Zed and science, and I was hired as a generalist. So it was orientation week. We were all sitting around, and I was learning so much information about the school. And then I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh, I wonder what I'm teaching. We got to do that in a couple days. So... I got classes that I had zero experience in, so I became...
What were your classes?
Social studies, art.
Do you like socials?
I have learned to really love social studies.
Nice.
I really love it now. I taught a wellness class. I had one more, I know it, but those were the big ones that are striking for me. But it was, a lot of figuring it out. I had made some friends in our school quite quickly, which were helpful. It was kind of like, hey, I need to find out something for this, and they would kind of point me in the right direction. But it was a lot of figuring things out for myself, which I think really made me grow quite early in my career. So I'm thankful for that kind of process. Similar to Bailey, it was like, this is the goal I want. I'm going to try this way first. No, that doesn't work. Okay, we're going to try this way. And we don't get to be with the students, I guess, all day, which would be very different from elementary. So it's like, I have you 1 hour this day. Maybe I don't see you again for another 3 days. And then I see you for another hour. So it's like just trying to remember all the time, okay, I was successful in this part. How can I change it to get closer to my goal, I guess?
To speed the process up for some of these new teachers arriving, what systems or what strategies do you think are the most successful, or at least decrease the chances of failure?
I have really learned to differ my lessons for the students that are in my room. So I'll have one goal, I'm trying to teach this concept today, but student 1, 2, and 3 need to learn it this way. Student 4 is going to learn it this way. And student 5 and 6, just having different options for different kids. I was trying an approach where it was like kind of the whole class is learning together at the beginning. And then I quite quickly learned there's students that just need different strategies.
There's like a wide range of academic ability.
Yes.
And so are you catering to 3 different levels within one class, or multiple levels?
Yes. And I found at the beginning, I was like, wow, this is so much more planning, but I'm also somebody that loves planning. So I'm like, oh, I kind of find some weird joy in that. But
how much planning does it take? Just to so for example, you have a 50-minute class.
Yeah.
How much additional time beforehand do you need to prepare for that 50-minute class?
I think it really depends at what point in the school year. Like the first few weeks to a month, it's quite a bit of figuring out. But now, we're in October, I know what students need what. It's just like, okay, I need to take off question 5 and 6 for this, or I need this student to write this on a whiteboard, or it's not near as time consuming anymore.
I guess this is a question for both of you. Where do you get your resources from? Do you use some of the most common platforms like Teachers Pay Teachers? Do you create your own? Do you find stuff on Google? What's your strategies?
A little bit of everything. Truly. I've started to, it took me, after that first year, I figured out we do have resources at my school. It's just about finding them, right?
How difficult is it to find things?
It's just, my school is a mess. My school is like a hoarder's paradise. Because I think that we get resources, right? And then we're not, there's never proper PD about resources that were sent, right? So I'm like, we have all these math textbooks. We have all these, 4 different versions of different, we have a math quest. We have a math, there's math makes sense. We have a bunch of different types of these resources that were sent with no explanation of look, there's a teacher's guide. Look, we should be using this. This goes with this unit, right? So it's all about kind of figuring out and finding this for yourself, and that takes time and effort. And I think that a lot of people, especially teachers who've been teaching for a while, stick with what they know, so things don't really change and progress, and because it's way easier to just, you taught grade 4 the last 5 years, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing I did last year with my grade 4s. But it was just tough to find it because my school is a mess. My school is so small, space wise. We don't even really have this library anymore. It's called the library, but it's 2 of my language teachers are in there, and then our SSTs desk is in there, and that's where our Connected North thing is. So, and then teachers have resources in their classrooms that they've never put back to where they got them from, right? So you're searching around to find, I just want one of those science and technology books for the light unit, and I'm searching around my whole school for it. So it's just about finding things anywhere and everywhere. And I was still figuring that out at the end of my last teaching year, right? I'm I need this. So I'm going to search through every class, every internet page, see what works. So
How it is so at least in the high school, like there's so many problems that happen in the day. It's very hard to make progress when there's problems. So when you're figuring out a lot of things for other people, it's hard to sort of document things for the next person. Is that so? Do you find that with the elementary? It seems like everything's under control over there, but how hard is it to leave a paper trail for the next person?
In terms of for another staff member,
Just for the new person coming into town, like something like so. What would have you? How hard is it to give something that you would have wanted when you first arrived?
that's a good question.
Like considering your right now, what time do you wake up in the morning?
My alarm goes off at 6:50. Sam will tell you sometimes I'm up at 7, sometimes it's 7:40.
Okay, and then let's pretend you had to leave a paper trail. What time is your alarm clock going off?
Probably same time. I still get to school at 8 every day.
8 o'clock.
Depending on
Early.
Depending on if I wake up at 7:40, I just punish myself and don't have a coffee that morning until I get to school.
Did you start at the same time we do?
9 is when my school starts.
Is it mandatory to be there at a certain time before the bell?
8:45.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that hour in the morning makes such a difference in terms of setting myself up for success, like mentally for the day.
The calm before the storm.
Yeah, and I it's always fun, and I'm not like judging other people and whatnot, but I could not start my day rolling in at the same time that the students do. You know, I need to take my jacket off. I need to clean my desk. I need to do all these things before the day starts in order to like start my day calm. If I started my day at the same time as the students every day, I would go nuts.
What kind of morning routines do you have? So like, when do you erase the September, the date on the board and rearrange it for the next day?
That's always a night before thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a going home routine?
No, depends on the day.
It's every day you sort of figure out. That's another thing. How do you guys handle your to-do list? All of the problems that happen in a day. How do you figure out what to prioritize? How to handle things?
I give things certain times that I want them done. It doesn't always happen. So I'm a big list person. I'll create my list in the morning. I'll look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get these things done in my first prep. I'm going to get these things done at lunchtime. I don't know how often I am fully successful with what I plan to get things done. I'm a procrastinator. I love organization, but I also do love to procrastinate. So that sometimes gets the better of me for sure.
One thing I miss about the structure of working in a classroom, like you had asked earlier if there's flexibility, the way that she just mentioned, like, I'm going to get this done my first prep, I'm going to get this done. Like, in a classroom role, you have specific times you need to be doing certain things. So then during that time off, it's like, I only have this small, precious amount of time. I have these 3 things to do. I miss that about having a structured day being in a classroom with a schedule, because I am a lot more able to push things and kind of justify pushing things and putting things off when I don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time.
Does anyone ever question your authority, like or decisions that you make?
Some of the older male teachers at my school.
That does that ever? How do you resolve those conflicts or those issues? Or is that ever a tough thing to happen?
Usually I'll give my mom a little call and pop a little, maybe cry sometimes, but I'm doing a lot better than I ever could have imagined I would, because I'm not someone who does confrontation. I'm not someone, like, my dad still makes my doctor's appointments. So for me to have to encounter these situations, and you know what? I think I do things in a way where most people respect me enough. Like, I kind of have proven myself to, and you know what? There will always be people who don't respect you, regardless of how much you prove yourself, how many things. So I don't let it bug me. I'm like as professional as possible. I avoid not interactions, because that's my job to interact, but any situation that I don't know. And I don't know if that's the best way to deal with things. I definitely need to like up my kind of like leadership and knowledge, but
you've climbed the ranks, rightfully so. And have you ever noticed people sometimes have a hard time accepting either instructions or advice from somebody that has less experience or less qualifications?
Yes. And you know what? Like I said, like the only issues I ever have are with a few older males in my school. And I think I'm a young woman. I'm not from here, right? So I've kind of accepted, like coming into the role, I did understand that I kind of felt like I needed to do a little bit more to earn people's respect because I'm young, I'm newish, and I'm not from here, right? So there's like kind of like three things against me, and I'm a woman. And I know that for some people might not think that's a factor, but I do oftentimes, I'm like a young woman in this role that's like supposed to be authoritative is a struggle for some people to get behind. So I kind of went into the role ready to prove myself a little more, and I think I did that very well in my first year. And then again, that goes back to me solving all the problems. Like people come to me with something, I make sure I'm listening, because I find that in the past, if I've gone to someone in a leadership role with a problem, you know when they're not listening to you, right? Like, you know when they're just...
Let's pretend someone wants to bring a problem to you.
Yep.
What is the appropriate way to do that?
For the person to bring the problem to me, or for me to...
Or no, for them to bring it to you. Like, what do you expect? Like, what's the best way for their problems to get solved if they actually want to bring it to you in a proper way?
Just come talk to me.
And is there do you need a warning when they're coming, or like an appointment or anything? Really?
No.
Wow.
I'm pretty because there's something about human, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, things pop up all the time, right? And I've this place, being in a teacher role, now being in this role, has really made me realize I am a grown up. Like, I don't know that I've fully accepted it yet, but like my first year, I had some tough issues with stuff that happened, kids and families outside of school, and parents were reaching out to me as support. And I was like this young 24-year-old having to be like this support for these adult parents who are raising kids. And I kind of realized in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm the adult in the room, right? And now people come to me, family stuff, school stuff, everything, right? And I'm like, I think the whole idea that these people are humans before they're employees at my school, I'm like, I'm always available. If I'm really busy or whatever that day, I'm like, are you, like, if it's not an emergency, obviously, I'll let them know. I'm like, I'm really busy right now. Do you want to come back to me tomorrow? And then we'll figure out an appointment time. But sometimes things just come up, right? Like, things at home happen. Like, most of my colleagues have, like, multiple kids. They have, like, marital issues. They have family stuff. And so I'm always available, and I want people to know that I'm always available, so they always feel comfortable coming to me.
Because you have the master plan, you need to know what's going to be affecting it. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. One of the questions we had was Connected North. We one of the resources that has been provided by is it by the government? Who provides this resource?
I think they're their own company. I don't know.
Good for whoever they are. They're pretty good.
They're contracted.
They're contracted?
Yeah. It's Connected North through Cisco, which is that internet company.
I've never heard of Cisco. I don't know.
If you see a picture, maybe you'll know.
Yeah.
I only know because I had an ex-boyfriend whose mom worked for Cisco.
That's what pops up on the TV when you turn it on. For the Connected North. It's the only reason I recognize the name.
Oh, really?
Yep.
But I think that company is contracted by the GN or the Department of Ed. I don't know. I could be wrong, so.
And what does this resource, what benefits does it have?
I love Connected North. They've helped me a lot with my art teaching, because quite often I'll give my students prompts, or I'll give them different manipulatives to use, and I give them a lot of creative freedom. And I get some questions sometimes, well, why aren't you teaching us how to do this? But I just truly am, at heart, I like to think I'm a creative person, but I do not have the skills to fully teach art tactics. Connected North has some great sessions, but also a lot of different Indigenous peoples will teach on there. So I like to let my students get a little bit of taste of other, like we'll do some Métis stuff, or we'll do some Cree teachings and different things like that. We've made like friendship bracelets, beaded earrings, and different things like that. Those are things I can't teach. And I will never have the knowledge really to teach those, or the perspective to teach those. So it's really, I learn a lot too. I enjoy learning with the students, and it's a special experience for me.
That is one of the cool benefits of being a teacher.
Yeah.
We do become, I forget the term I'm thinking of, it jack of all trades.
Yeah.
We sort of learn as we go, as we're teaching things as well. But how do you know what kind of lessons you want to be taught on the TV screen? So first of all, this is a technology where experts of all kinds are on this TV. We get to choose what kind, but what is your process for obtaining one of these experts?
I use two different processes. We've been very lucky, our school, the last few years, to have very good, I don't know what the correct term is, but there's a person who works for Connected North that's assigned to each school. Our liaison, I guess we can call them, has been very good. I'll just send them an email. I'm like, hey, excited to be back with Connected North this year. I'm teaching these things this semester. These are the topics we're going to cover. What do you got for me? And quite often they'll just send me a full PDF back. They're like, here's 20 different sessions that I think would be very applicable for you and what you're going to teach. And then I'll pick them that way. I go through the menu. They send little books to our school. I go through those too, but I've always found communicating with our liaisons the best way.
Right. How is there a certain type of format that you enjoy more than other formats, presentation-wise?
I like the hands-on activities. They're very good to send just like kits and materials. I know you've done the soapstone carving one too. That was one of my favorites.
Oh my god, that's a hit every single year. Yeah. Every time.
I just signed up for it again this year for my art class.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the same.
But those little creative things where the students get to take something home at the end too. Those are my favorite.
Yeah. Have you noticed there are some experts on there that are an expert in science.
Yeah.
And I've brought my class down, and they give a 50-minute lecture. How do you think the students learning in a second language would respond to a 50-minute lecture?
I think quite similarly to how they would respond if I stood up in front of the class and just talked to them for 50 minutes. They need to do something, they get restless. And also, like, the pace at which people talk, different sometimes accents people have, it's just harder for them to understand. I think about, like, I know French as a second language, not fluently, but I always think about, like, when people speak French to me, in my head I'm like translating it to English, and like that's what a lot of the students will do a lot of the time. People are speaking English at them, they're like almost translating it in their head into a Inuktitut, and then I'm like, wow, that's such a process. So I can understand why they get restless. It makes sense. But yeah,
one of the things that I want to do is weed out the weak. So part of this podcast is to sort of give out information. There's going to be something like, there's a lot of people that have moved up here that have not meant to be up here. And so those people typically hate certain things about none of it, or these small communities. Do you have any idea what maybe their perspectives are, or what they might dislike about living here? What are some of the hardships that you have encountered while living here?
You want to go first?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I think that people, I'm trying to think of anyone I know who's struggled and has not, I don't want to say lasted here, but who is no longer here. The things I knew about them, coming up here, you can't really have a fixed mindset on anything, I don't think. I think if you are coming up here, you need to have this absolute growth mindset, open-minded, because it's not a place you've ever been. Like, even if you've been to another northern community, this is a different northern community than you've ever been. So I think that coming up here with any type of fixed mindset is like asking for trouble. And then expectations, like...
And what is a fixed mindset?
Like when you're not willing to change how you live, how you work, how you do things. And you're
even if they have a PhD...
Probably more so if they have a PhD, Ryan.
Oh, shucks.
But I just not being willing to change your perspective, your mindset, how you're willing to do things, how you're willing to live. Like, because that's been, I feel like, anyone who I know who has struggled the most here, that's been kind of the number one thing I've noticed is they're not like willing to change what they know and what they want and what they do. And that's okay if you're a person like that. It just, this isn't the place for you if that's the case. Yeah. That's like the number one thing. And then expectations, like like if you're coming from like the worst thing to hear is when people come here and they're like, well, back in wherever I'm from, this is how we do it. Well, you are not there anymore, and feel free to go back there anytime you want. Like, absolutely, people, I think, like, it's important to bring what you know into anywhere you go, right? But you're coming into a new place, figure this place out first. Like, so that's the way, if you are expecting this place to be Ontario, you shouldn't be here, I don't think. Like,
yeah, I very much agree. I've said it so many times to very different people, but I think I'm very lucky that this was my first teaching job. Other than my practicum, when I wasn't even fully in control of my classes, I wasn't doing report cards, I wasn't really calling home. But I have nothing to compare it to, and I think people that compare to their past experiences, those are the ones that get frustrated, and those are the ones that might not have as good of a time. You just have an open mindset. Don't expect certain things to happen. Don't expect to be treated a certain way. Don't expect to, like, don't have this entitlement, like I deserve this because I'm coming here to do this for you. Yeah. That's the kind of mindset you gotta leave it at home.
We need some team players.
Yeah. Big team.
I guess that's something I think a lot of the top people in our school have in common, have played on sports teams.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, first of all, you have to take care of yourself, and then you got to help your brother beside you.
Exactly.
What are some of the rewards of living up here?
Okay. Rewards. It's hard now that you're not looking.
I'll take this one first.
Go.
I truly think I thrive in this like little outdoor like adventure environment. I'm a big I love a little adventure. Even in the South, I text my friends, "Hey, you want to go on a little adventure? This is a place to adventure," all the time. Also, if you love learning, it sounds like a really super nerdy thing to say, which is totally fine. We love nerds, but I love to learn, and this is a place where you can learn all the time. Doesn't matter if you're having a conversation with somebody, if you're picking up a new skill, if you're going to a new place. I think the learning aspect, how I get to learn alongside the students all the time, is probably the most rewarding thing for me.
For me personally, this is like, I think, a personal thing, and I don't know if I have always been like pretty anxious and what's the word? Like very like anal type A type of person, and like a very high strung.
Is that like order? Like you need order?
Order, and also like if I'm not 15 minutes early for something,
you're late.
I'm late.
I like that.
Yeah. But there's also an element of that I've always lived my life where it's like any type of change made me so anxious and angry and upset, and I couldn't function with it. Like, if we had plans for tomorrow, like say this was 5-6 years ago, you and me have plans for tomorrow, you have decided, oh, you can't do that plan, or you want to change the plan, or you want to change the time, it's tomorrow, so we have a full day. But I still, in my mind, I'm like, no, we made it, so I was very much, and then I would start to get anxious, and then I would spiral, and then I would, like, things had to be, like, I couldn't deal with that. Coming here has, like, forced me to, like, slow my mind. Like, you know what? People are late all the time. I'm still not going to be late personally, but it has made me okay with being late. It's not the end of the world, as I was like raised to believe, and as I lived the first bits of my adult life believing, like, nothing's gonna happen if someone's late.
When when that happens, does I'm constantly like in a mode of like, all right, so I'm prepared, And then as soon as the time clicks 9 o'clock and I'm ready and things are happening, then I start rethinking the strategies. I think, all right, what pieces can I cut? What are these things? It's sort of like if you're in a movie, the space, like you're in a spaceship, and something goes wrong, and then now you got to do all these calculations to get back home safely. Does that happen to you, or is it more relaxed?
Now it's more relaxed. Like
let's say people are late. How do you continue with the plan if you're 5 or 10 minutes behind schedule?
You know what? Again, ask me this question 5 years ago. I would have been, my mind, Ryan, would have been like, I almost shut down, right? Like I wasn't like a solver. I didn't have those like tools and strategies to like, Bailey, it's gonna be okay. We're just gonna do this instead. Like in my brain, like I'm like I would have wanted to start crying. I would have wanted, like, no, things aren't going as planned. Oh my God, it's the end. It's the end. Like I panic full on. And now it's like, oh well, we're starting 10 minutes late. Every day we start 10 minutes late. You know, like I'm like, and this change in me has actually made, for me personally, it's been like so nice. Like it's actually like this place has just calmed me down in a way that I'm like I didn't know I necessarily needed, because I was okay with living like that. It wasn't like end of the world, but now I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice.
How have you both taken your masters?
I'm in the middle of mine right now.
How do you balance taking your masters and doing the teaching at the same time?
The program that I am in is structured very well for teachers that are actively teaching. It's like a part-time program. So right now I'm in one class. We meet once a week for 3 hours online, and then we'll have 4 to 5 assignments throughout, I guess, the course, which right now runs for 2.5 months. But they set us up well to succeed, and a lot of the work is relevant to things that we do at school, which makes me want to do it. Again, I do still procrastinate. I had an assignment due this week. I thought I had to make 1 PowerPoint. I had to make 2 PowerPoints and a 5-page paper. So things do get kind of shifted behind because I prioritize things at work, but somehow I always find a way to get things done.
How do you maintain your energy throughout the week? Do you have a process?
I try to remind myself that when I am in a good headspace at work, I enjoy it so much more. So like when I am playing dodgeball with the students versus sitting on the bench, I have a much more enjoyable time. Or like if I'm bumping around the classroom talking to the students versus sitting at my desk, I'm enjoying myself more. Sometimes it's hard because I'll have one of those nights where I didn't sleep very well, but I'm just always trying to constantly remind myself, just go have fun with it. Have fun with it. That brings the energy, I guess.
What kind of things are you learning in your masters?
Right now, I'm in a critical research literacy class. So I will finish my master's this summer. So we're kind of getting to those just research type courses before we head out. But I'm currently looking into a researcher who does a lot of research on the culture of schools and how it affects the physical activity levels of students, which I find quite interesting. So that makes it easier too.
What was your goal for taking your master's in the first place?
We are in a lucky position where we get quite a bit of funding for professional development through our Teachers Association, and it wasn't something I wanted to pass up. Like I've said, I like learning, so I kind of contacted some of my professors from my BED, and I was like, hey, I know I've only been teaching for 1 year, but would I get accepted into this program? They were like, yeah. I just wanted to keep learning. I wanted to take opportunity of the opportunities that were there, I guess.
Hey, 100%. So one of the problems that we do face, I wonder if it's the same in the elementary school, is absenteeism. Does it ever make you angry when a student misses class?
You go first.
Or how does it even affect your lessons day to day?
It sucks because, well, from an elementary perspective, it makes me a little more angry at parents than it does kids. Because I don't know about you, like, if my parents never woke me up for school in the morning, I would never go. If my parents didn't expect me to go to school in the morning, I'm not going. So it's like...
Why was that? Did you enjoy school?
No, not more than the other kid, but like my parents were both teachers. You know, it was never not an expectation that I couldn't go, you know? So when you're little, you're 5, 6, like I don't know if there's people who have this belief that like, oh, well, they're just 5 and 6. It's not really that important. But it sets the tone for the rest of your school career, right? Like, wake your kid up. Bring your kid to school. Like, the difference it makes in the regular attenders who then continue on with school, like, because then you find situations in high school or middle school where it's like the kid never attended and then they feel awkward to attend. The other kids don't know them very well. The kids who attend see these kids and they're like, who are you? Like, you don't come to school. So my frustration with the absenteeism is with parents, in my perspective, because from the ages of 5 to 10, you're not really in control of waking up to an alarm yourself. You know, like you can be, but that takes a lot of self-discipline.
And demonstration. Here's how you use an alarm
You
clock.
need to be shown how to do this, and you need to be so, like, still as an adult, I'm like, sometimes Sam needs to come wake me up, right? Like, I'm like,
Really?
So
Occasionally, here and there.
That's so kind.
So as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, it's your parents' duty to be waking you up, sending you to school, setting that expectation of you need to go to school. And then the absenteeism affects lessons in terms of like there's no continuation. You know, like you start like, so things are like a one-day thing because you don't know who's going to come back tomorrow to be able to finish this, when that's not really the way now. Like, the more you do education, like research.
How do you prepare? So for your lessons, do they look a certain way to accommodate all those missing students?
Like there were days I remember, like I had a lesson planned to introduce a new topic, to introduce a new unit, and I wouldn't do it because I only had 4 or 5 kids. I'm like, I'm not introducing a new topic to only you 4 and 5, because then it's like the other kids are gonna, all of a sudden they've missed this like intro lesson. And then so in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, I'm quickly planning something that morning to make up for the fact that I'm like, okay, this is being moved to tomorrow.
Sam?
I don't know if angry is the right word. Certain circumstances, definitely, it makes me a little bit angry, but mostly because I know how much some students could be doing if they came to school every day. Like, yeah. I try not to get angry all the time because I've had conversations with students from why haven't you been here? I haven't been allowed to come to school. I have to stay home with my younger siblings. I have to stay home and do this for my family, which I understand, and those are the situations that make me sad, where I'm like, you want to be here and you just aren't actually allowed to be here. Those situations make me sad.
That's cool that they're communicating that. I'm
Yes.
sure there's quite a few of those, and I don't know who is who. I don't know who is just missing class because they stayed up playing PUBG.
It's hard to tell sometimes.
And I don't know who missed class because they have 13 brothers and sisters. They don't have a sleeping place, and there's lights on all night.
Yeah.
And then there's the students that I forget the third option, but that
just
one.
off doing other things.
Yes.
But yes. Yeah.
It's hard to tell. So some of them do need some help, but it would be nice if they could communicate that to us.
Yeah.
So we can excuse you from that work.
Yeah.
The taking care of I remember being with my grade 5, the taking care of the younger siblings and not being able to go to school, that was the first, that made me really sad for this poor girl. She has like 4 or 5 younger siblings, and she had to babysit because like, it's tough to find childcare here. The daycares are way understaffed. There's not the physical space to allow all the kids to go to daycare. Okay.
We're gonna cut this out.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
No, it's good. Just wait one.
Okay.
We're Is that all I did? Oh no.
What is that?
Not the ASMR again.
I'll just cut that out. What were we talking about just before?
Oh, it was just the childcare and how that ends up kind of spiraling. Like it turns the lack of childcare, the unavailability of childcare, then spirals into other kids having to take care of kids. Then that's kids missing school. So that's a sad situation and a sad reason for absenteeism, because I think it's more prevalent than we think.
And would that, so do you think the government, like, we sort of see it on the front lines. We sort of think that does justify a passing grade at times. Would the government ever write that in their protocols? Say, like, if you are taking care of your students, or if you are taking care of 13 brothers and sisters, writing, balancing checkbooks, creating grocery lists for your stuff, or for your families, could we, or even what kind of system, like, because it seems like right now, the current system, if these things are happening regardless, how do we operate in the system? So, like, there's been some talks of even just, like, pass or fail grades, a curriculum. Is there a way to justify student marks, or is there a different system that maybe we should go to?
I think the first start is to get a curriculum, for us at high school at least, that is from here. We're still using Alberta curriculum, right? So I think then also the expectations and the way that we assess and the way that we give out grades and stuff will change to be more accurate as well.
When do you think this is coming?
They're saying 2038, 2039. It's way too far away.
Are you really?
Yeah. So I don't know why it's going to take that long.
I'm trying to do the math in my head there and figure out how old I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why it would take that long?
No, I don't know. I've asked. I had a conversation with the president of our NTA last year when he was rerunning his campaign. I was like, "Hey, what's the deal with curriculum? Why do we still use Alberta curriculum?" And he's like, "We are being told 2038, and I cannot tell you why it's going to take that long."
Why don't we just do it ourselves? Why don't we just, like, plan and then implement? Because, like, I'd rather get caught with it than without it. They're gonna deny it. Like, can we build this? They're gonna say no.
Yeah.
But when the time comes, I would rather have it than not have it.
I was just gonna, this might be unrelated. Does BC have, like, graduating exams? Like, to graduate from grade 12, you have to take an exam?
Yes.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
We had government exams. Like, so, like, there was, like, English and socials. I think socials 10 was the highest. Math 11 foundations was the highest that you had to take. And
to graduate?
That's a good question. I don't know
anymore. I think we had what you would call kind of departmental exams for English and math when I was in high school. Yeah.
Grade 12.
Yeah. I know for sure we wrote an English one. Math I'm a little bit sketchy on because I would have taken grade 12 math, like, earlier, because I went through I love math, calculus and pre-cal and that stuff.
You took what?
Yeah.
Could you teach math if like, a student brought you some questions?
Yep. I love when the students bring me math questions. It's such a fun little time for me because it makes me dig back my brain and then I can do it. I'm like, yes.
Would you ever teach math?
Yes.
Really?
100%. I love math. It's weird, but yeah.
You guys are freaks.
Yep. Big time.
Yeah.
But I only asked that, sorry, and then I'm going back to, remember earlier when I was like, oh, if you're from Ontario, go back there, whatever. But we don't do that. We have a grade 9 Ontario math test that everyone needs to take, and then a grade 10 literacy test. That's it. If you don't pass a literacy test in grade 10, you can retake it in grade 11. If you don't pass it in grade 11, in grade 12, you take a class to get that literacy. So it's like, I'd never heard of the situation of having to take an exam to get your high school degree. So this was a first for me to hear that because, and oh my God, I'm not an exam girl. I am not a test girl. I'm thankful that was not my situation. So then I think about the kids here and I have a lot of sympathy to be writing these tests that are from this Alberta curriculum that is not even a Nunavut-based curriculum. I have a lot of sympathy for that whole situation.
It appears that there's a lot of students that have difficulty reading and writing in English. And so is that fair to put those questions on an exam? Naturally, it's going to be tough.
I think the answer is just no. I'm just going to stick to no. I don't think it's fair.
What were your high school experiences like?
I loved high school, but I was that athletic kid that I was just involved in everything. I was playing on, like, multiple hockey teams, multiple rugby teams.
Did you excel at everything across the board?
I was a pretty athletic kid, and my parents, I'm pretty sure, I was talking about this with Bailey last night, I'm pretty sure my parents put me in a lot of, like, clubs and sports growing up so I didn't get into trouble.
Smart. That is a smart move.
I'm from a pretty small town. It was either, like, basically you played sports or you got into a little bit of trouble, and then I never had any interest of getting in trouble because I was always so busy.
Right.
But yeah, I had a very positive high school experience.
I feel like in high school, or I guess most of school, you sort of have an option of either you have fun or you choose academics. It seems like you chose both.
I like to think I chose both. I like I said, I'm also a nerd, so I enjoyed the learning of school. And the sports also, we had an expectation that we had to be in good standing in our classes in order to compete. Right. And competing was of high priority for me. So it was like, yeah, I would go to hockey practice. I'd drive an hour to hockey practice. I would practice for 2 hours, drive an hour home, and then spend 2 hours on homework. But
right. So like taking away a privilege was a form of discipline.
Yeah.
And it got results. But in a place like here where people don't have much to begin with, how hard is it to discipline somebody by taking away their privileges? So, for example, like we have one of the biggest privileges we have is free. What's that, basketball? The
open gym.
Open gym.
Yeah.
Everyone loves open gym because
Yeah.
like after school, there's realistically not a ton of options.
Yeah.
And then so they go to the open gym, and if they were misbehaving, we could take that away, but the town would lose their minds.
Yeah. I've done it a couple times. Again, like, sorry, you need to know who you can do those things with, right? It's all getting down to forming those relationships again. But I coach a couple teams here. I coached volleyball last year. There were times when students were disrespectful to me that day at school, and I would tell them, you're not welcome at practice this evening. Sweet. It is a privilege. You need to treat people properly in order to receive that privilege. So today you will not have that. And the behavior corrected so quickly. And majority of the time it lasted.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That is good. Bailey, what was your high school experience like?
It was good. I had fun.
So did your grades also excel?
Not as much as Sam's probably. I always had a pretty easy like elementary. So my school was kindergarten to grade 8, and then my high school was 9 to 12. So
was that common? Where you're
yes. From? Yeah. At least in my city, I know that Toronto has middle schools and junior schools, but for the most part, like my city, other than the French school, everything was kindergarten to grade 8, then 9 to 12.
Are you French? You're French immersion?
No. Oh. No. The French school did something crazy. They were like 7 to 12 was their high school. I don't know. But I always found school pretty easy. And then I got to high school, not having developed any type of work ethic. And then having to like kind of try. I wasn't very good at that. But it wasn't hard. Like I never failed anything in high school. I was a pretty good 70s student. I was an athlete too, student council. I tried to be involved. I think if I were to go back, I'd focus a little bit less on like the popularity side of things. I was pretty concerned about being popular. I did my fair share of like partying and things like that, but I think it turned out okay. But I enjoyed high school. There was a point where I was like, I wanted to do a 5th year, and my parents were like, why? And I just because I wanted another year of high school, they're like, no, because you're gonna mess around. Like, what's the point of that if you have no goal? So
balance is important. Well, I guess it all depends on who you ask. Some people say balance is very, very important. When was the moment you guys decided to go to university?
I think I always knew I wanted to go to university, but when it really became real for me, it was pretty sport related as well. Grade 10, my high school was grade 10 to 12. So I started playing rugby in grade 10. That was the first time you could really play rugby other than ripping a flag off of somebody's belt. But I started to have university coaches talking to me about playing for them. And I think that's when it kind of was like, oh yeah, no, that's something I'm doing. I'm doing that for sure.
How was that experience?
It was fun and it was interesting. I knew I wanted to go to St. X, but I am a Valley girl for any Nova Scotians that know the Valley, but very close to
Valley
Acadia.
Sounds nice.
It's a great place, but very close to Acadia University. That was the first coach that talked to me was Acadia University. I was training there all the time, competing there, just because it's like 15 minutes from my house. So
And what was your role on the sports team? The rugby team?
At that point, at high school,
Or I guess maybe grade 12 transitioning to university.
I would have been the captain of my team in grade 12. I was also playing on a senior women's team out of my hometown at this point, and playing for Team Nova Scotia also. So rugby was taking over, consuming a lot of my life at that point.
Do they have positions?
Yeah, my position was called prop.
What does that person do?
We're in the front row. We are the movers. So we say there's like piano players and piano movers. The piano players are those fast ones that they're gonna run around you. Piano movers are like me. We're gonna run through you. I'm not running around. I'm not beating anybody in a foot race, but I could probably knock you over.
Is it scary getting out there?
I never. My first game, I was absolutely terrified, and then I tackled one person one time, and I was never scared again after that.
Because you guys in rugby, you don't wear pads.
No, mouth guard. That's pretty much
That's it?
Yeah, cleats and a mouth guard.
Oh my gosh! How many injuries have you had in your career?
Official injuries. I separated my AC joint in my shoulder. I think I played on a broken foot one year, and I tore my MCL. But nothing that really put me out for a long time. Like knock on wood. Again, I'm still playing with a senior women's team in the summer. It probably wouldn't be the end of the world if I got hurt and had to miss a few games. But
so the sports was your main priority. At what point did you know you wanted to be a teacher, or when did you start taking teaching courses?
my grandmother was a teacher, so all growing up, I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. Then I got to university, and I was like, no, I want to be an occupational therapist. No, I want to be a physiotherapist. I want to be an athletic therapist.
How many years did it take you to figure it out?
In my third year of university that summer, I worked, or my third year of university, I worked in Antigonish with kids, and I just called my mom one day after work, and I was like, I gotta stop fighting this teaching thing. I think I'm supposed to be a teacher. And then like 3 weeks before graduation, I applied for a change of majors, I guess. Then I changed. My major was pre-education. Before that, it was kinesiology. So, yeah, I was, again, the procrastination thing. I do it sometimes. But I started when third, fourth year, we had a little bit more control over what classes we could take.
And Bailey, what was your experience like?
I don't think there was ever an option for me to not go to university. Like, I didn't know. Like, both my parents, like, my mom has 2 degrees, my dad has 3, right? So it's like, I come from a house of university educated people, and they've been growing this education fund since I was a baby. My parents are both teachers. Like, it's so I always knew it was university, and I always knew it was teaching. And I hate saying that. My parents tried to talk me out of it constantly. My parents were like, do something else.
Get out now.
Do something else. Yeah, that was it, right? But so it was always teaching. I mean, there was a brief period of life where I wanted to be a hairstylist. Okay. I don't know how well that worked out for me because I don't have any of those skills. But
have you cut anyone's hair while you've been up here?
No one really wants me cutting.
I'd let you cut my hair.
Because this is a place that desperately needs hairdressers.
Yeah, you don't want me cutting your hair. And then, so my thing was, I went to university so in Ontario, there's this program called concurrent education. And it's a 5-year, it's now 6 years, but it was basically kind of a shortcut to get your BA and then your BEd. And so only like 5 schools in Ontario offered it. I got into those schools. I was like, this is my route because I know what I want to do, right? So it was this kind of streamlined program where you start doing education courses right away, all the way through. But in Ontario, you need teachables for elementary. So my teachables were French and Canadian studies, which is like underneath socials. You needed to keep a 80 average in your teachables.
Sweet. Okay. Wait, so what are your teachables?
My teachables were French. I don't have any teachables now because I went to school in Nova Scotia. But basically, when I got into the program, my teachables were French and Canadian studies.
Okay, interesting.
I couldn't keep those marks. So then after my first year, and I like to have fun, Ryan. I was like, I wasn't a class misser, but I was definitely not a go over and above, do all my things, go meet with profs type of gal.
We were like, I can do this at home. I can read this chapter in the textbook.
Yep. And then I would see my bed and I would fall asleep, and I just again never developed this work ethic. Not once in my life have I figured out how to properly do work, and that's why I'm not doing a master's. That's why I'm not pursuing further education. Basically, I got kicked out of this program. I was put on probation after my first year. I had a chance to get my marks up, did not. So then my first degree was in child and youth studies. Like, I kind of backtracked. The French was so difficult. And I was like, I could speak French too. But it was like, one prof was like an African country French. One prof was Quebec French. One prof was France French. I don't know what you know about French, but those are all so different. And I was just, so I'm almost, everything happens for a reason, right? So I was booted out of this. So my first degree was in child and youth studies, and my minor ended up being Canadian studies. And then I took a year off because the teacher goal was still a thing, right? I wasn't giving up on that. I just needed to go a different route, right? So I took a year off. I did some EA work in schools. I did some like uncertified supply teaching in schools.
Was that a good first step to becoming a teacher?
It was awesome. Like, experience-wise, it kind of confirmed that it's what I want to do. And I think being an EA really made me appreciate the work that an EA does in a classroom. Like, working with those kids with the exceptionalities, like, that's such a hard job. And I think that a lot of teachers don't appreciate that. And now you can
role. You can assist.
Yes.
Or sort of set a sweet plan for that person.
Yeah. So my mom was hoping that year would deter me, actually, which is so funny. Because I'm like, my parents both had these like super fulfilling like 30-year careers. Like, my dad still goes back and supply teaches, but it's like in their minds, they were like, are you sure? Are you sure? You know? So, but that year kind of confirmed what I wanted to do. I applied to maybe 4 or 5 teachers' colleges, 3 in Ontario, 1 in Manitoba, and then St. FX. It's so tough having teachers' college or like B.Ed programs look at marks. Like, to accept you to a teacher's education program based on your undergrad marks feels crazy to me, because I've always thought about teaching as such like a personality profession. Like, you can only teach so much until someone like cannot stand in front of a classroom.
You have 2 people. One's qualified, it's just very qualified, and one person is not qualified, but they are willing to learn.
You just have it. Like, you have it or you don't. And I know that that's probably not a great way to look at it, but I still kind of think like you can learn everything and anything in the book as to teaching, as to subjects, as to whatever. But if you can't build those, back to relationships, if you can't build those relationships, if you can't commit to learning something to then be able to teach your kid, like, I don't know if you guys ever, like, I struggled in high school. Some of my teachers in like subjects, science and math, because that's not me. I had this math teacher who was like so smart, so smart. He could teach it one way because he was like, he never struggled to figure out the different ways you can learn math. Lowest mark I've ever gotten in a class, 55. I'm like, it was abysmal, but he taught it one way, and I was like, that's not the way I can learn this math. Whereas now, like, I'm like someone who struggled a little bit, not saying that smart people don't make good teachers, but I like someone who struggled a little bit, built up some like adversity and different skills. But I just like, anyways, I always knew it was teaching. I didn't get into all 3 Ontario programs because my undergrad marks were not great. So it was between Brandon, Manitoba, which was a weird application. It's where my parents ended up going because their marks weren't high enough to get into Teachers College in Ontario. So maybe it's like a genetic thing. I don't know. But it was between Brandon, Manitoba, and St. FX. And I figured if I was moving away from home again, because I'm such a homebody, which is also another weird thing about me being here, I was like, I'd rather be by the ocean than be in Manitoba. So I think I made a good choice. I had a great time. St. FX was awesome.
How many of these strategies that you learned in university are you employing in your classrooms? Because we learned the newest, baddest, like we graduated not that long ago, very recently ago, and though our professors were giving us the torch that they had built for their entire lives, and we took it from them, and now we have all of their knowledge. And how useful has that knowledge been, at least in the North?
I think some of it I've used very much. I took this really good learning disabilities class as one of my electives in my BEd, and I'm in no way saying a lot of our students have learning disabilities, but they are English second language learners, so a lot of the strategies I learned within that class are things that I will try. And I'll color code certain things, and so I'll be like, okay, today we're learning about this. That's the pink papers you have. And those types of weird, like, little strategies seem to work very well.
Like very crystal clear instructions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just those little things. And the lesson planning strategies, none of that really I use. I love lesson planning, but they just really, really made us do it to an unrealistic degree.
God, yeah. Yeah. Like a 2-page lesson plan for one lesson in teachers college was like,
here's your intro, your main activity, your closure. So I guess the elementary is a little bit of a different approach, because you guys, how does even your day plan look? It looks like you have like 30 courses you teach in one day.
Everything's divided into 30-minute blocks, and we have like the whole day is divided into like 30 minutes, like 9 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10.
And of that 30 minutes, how much are you actually teaching? Like, or how much are you trying to teach for that 30 minutes?
It depends. Like, it's the thing I like about elementary, it's my classroom, right? Like, other than prep periods, like other than when they do gym or computers, or we now have an art teacher who comes in, or for me, like Inuktitut, like other than those classes, I can kind of form it to the point where I have this awesome lesson planned, but my kids are like, there's something off today, I'm going to cut it short. I have that ability to.
Like, what would be one of those things that you notice?
If they're not into it, like they're up out of their seats, they're sleeping, they're not. So then I have this ability at this moment in time to go, you know what, we're only going to do 10 minutes of socials today. And tomorrow I'm going to pick up where we left off, but I'm going to move, like, because they're still in my class, I can do those 10 minutes of socials. We take like a 15-minute brain break. We go outside, we have snack, we do something like that. I have this ability to, and then we move on to the next subject or next class. Once I've given them, like, that's the nice thing about the freedom. Like, yes, it's built into a schedule, and yes, I need to do a certain number of hours of each subject every year, but I'm able to work around it in a way where I can make up for it. It doesn't need to be within the confines of you see them for 50 minutes. You see, and then you have to fill up those 50 minutes.
You know what's crazy? Of that 50 minutes, you know how much I will teach of that 50 minutes? I was originally in university, my professor told me I have 7 minutes to get my classroom doing something. Up here, I have less than that. I have less than 3 minutes to get them doing something.
Yeah.
And so realistically, my teaching is 2.5 minutes, then I'm done.
Yeah.
And then we go to work.
Yep.
You gotta get hands-on doing something.
One of the things I have noticed is, so with students, with that mood is in the atmosphere, we can tell there's no point in pushing through this lesson. One of those times, there's been 2 times. One has been when there's a suicide in town. And so that is something that is constantly happening throughout the years. And so that will disrupt the classroom environment. And also, for some reason, I have no idea why there's a square dance in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
It should be on the weekend, but sometimes, all of a sudden, the next day, it's a Thursday, I'm missing half my class. Of the 6 that are in my class, 3 are sleeping already.
Yeah.
2 have asked to go to the wellness room, and 1 is like, Ryan, can we just take today off? How important is it to take days off? Like, if there, I think sometimes admin might want you to push through. I think as frontline workers, we can sort of read the classroom and make a judgment call. How important is it to stick to the plan of the school goals versus taking into account your own perspectives on the front line?
I think as teachers that are with these students every day, we really learn when those times are necessary. Like, I've had one student show up for classes, and that wasn't not typical for that class. Like, I would get one student, but they were always very different students, and sometimes I would get very excited. I'm like, okay, I can get this person caught up today because I haven't seen them for 2 weeks. But then they sit down, and almost being comfortable with you, they'll just like let it all go, and they'll cry and they'll get everything off their chest. But I always think of it as, this is a place where they feel comfortable enough to talk about these things. They're not processing this at home. They're not having the time to do that. So I think as teachers, our end goal is to prepare students for life, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a day where they don't go to school anymore because they've graduated and they need to be successful. They need to have skills to be successful outside of school. Yes, curriculum's important, but if we are just focusing 100% on curriculum every single day, we are not setting these students up for success past high school. So showing them that it is okay to take some time when you need it, I think is very important.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Even taking time off is very important. Even some of the countries that take 4-day weeks,
yeah,
they say they're more productive. Sometimes I think in a place like this, like where there's so many problems and there's so much so if you don't have, so we know the flood is coming, which is basically the whole school year. We know the flood is coming. Would be nice if we had a foundation. And so if we were able to build that foundation on Fridays, at least for a couple of months, that would be awesome. Or yeah, who knows? But I support that decision.
Thank you.
How do you assess students in the North? Do you have a certain strategy? Is there advice that you could give to the next teacher?
And I guess elementary and secondary would be so different assessment-wise, regardless of, I think where we are. But what I've noticed is a lot more, I think about a Southern classroom, and I think about the tests and the evaluations and the, sit down and write this kind of stuff. I feel I've had to be a lot more creative in my assessments and the ways in which I'm evaluating and assessing students here. It's a lot more observation. It's a lot more about their growth as a learner, personally for me. And I know that that's a lot easier to do in elementary than it is secondary, because you guys need kind of numbers, and we just are still A, B, C, D. Mine is a lot more kind of just observational stuff about the kids, how they work, can they work independently,
do you sort of rank them this student is the smartest, he gets an A, and then there's sort of a range, this range of students are at the top of the class, then the secondaries, the third areas? I need to be better at rubrics. In my second year here, I was really everything was a rubric, because I'm you know what, this kid could be so smart, but he's being an absolute jerk today, and he's not even trying, and he's not doing his best work. So why is he getting an A over the kid who's slaving away trying their best, right? So I take that a lot more into account in my role now. I'm noticing that assessment hasn't been taught as well as it could have been in the program that is taught through Arctic College, because we have a lot of graduates from that program, and they're awesome. They're local. They're always learning. They're some of my favorite teachers to work with. And they can speak the same language.
Yeah, they speak the same language as the kids. They know the kids. But I don't know. And that program's been bounced around from university to university. So it's not laid out in a way that I think has set these teachers up for an incredible amount of success in a lot of ways, especially assessment-wise. So there's an understanding. Some of these teachers they're well, the kid came. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm worried about you. There's the kid came, so he's getting a check mark. And we've kind of had to move away from that. And I think that's also some, a little bit of the older teacher style. It was
more assessing on behaviors?
Well, it was more so just attendance. And they handed in their work. So they came to school and they handed in their work. Check mark, check mark. But it's that means you're putting everyone on the same scale. I don't know. It's a lot more nuanced than I think. I don't know. Assessment's a struggle, and I think it'll always be a struggle for me wherever I am. But you got to be I've noticed you have to be a little bit more creative in terms of how you're assessing and what you're looking for here than in classrooms I've been in the South.
Sam, do you have any strategies up your sleeve?
Assessment-wise, my strategies change all the time. I guess the groups of students I get in my classes are also different, but I always just try to find a way dependent on the students in my room. My philosophy is assessment should be a place where students can succeed, but they're also challenged. So finding that like little in the middle where it's not like, oh, that was easy peasy. It was like I had to work for that, but I was able to do it. So I'm a big give multiple options. So this is the end result I need from you. You can create it this way, or this way. I'm not telling you 100% how you have to do it. You can make a video explaining to me how you know that knowledge. You can do a visual of that. You can write it down for me. Just as long as you are able to prove to me that you are understanding the concepts I am trying to teach you, that's okay with me. Assessment should be fun. I think it can be very fun.
Does it ever stress you out with, it seems like sometimes, like I guess especially for new teachers, because sometimes if you go through a ton of worksheets and you go through a ton of things, how do I assess all of this work that I've just handed out, and how do I put that in and justify their marks, because all of a sudden like their marks aren't justified. It seems like their marks are completely different what they should be. Is there a way to sort of slow things, like so for example, one thing that I have noticed, or something that I have tried, is now my marks are completely general for daily work. So daily work, I give them a mark out of 5.
Yeah.
Are they mostly done? 5. Are they somewhat done? 4, little done 3, very little 2, took a nap all throughout. The only thing I actually have to mark is their projects. I give them a quantitative mark for the projects, and like you said, I give them a ton of options, so like easiest all the way to step 6, which is, it's a podcast. I think step number 6, even though it's the hardest one, is pretty fun.
Yeah.
But anyways, a lot of options for project, and then a very slow process for the quiz. But those are the only things that I actually make quantitative. The other marks are very general. Have you noticed something similar? Like if teachers come up here and expect things to sort of be down south, how difficult can it be to justify their marks?
Me and you are very much on the same page there. I give a daily mark, or daily work mark. Are you showing up? Are you making an effort? Are you doing what I'm asking you to do? If you are doing those things, then you are showing me you're trying to succeed. So then I will also take in certain specific marks for certain assignments and stuff throughout the semester, but a lot of it's effort based. But again, I'm in a pretty lucky position where this was my first teaching job, so I don't really know if those are typical practices of people in the South, and I think it would be kind of an adjustment if you don't come in with that open mindset. But I think, again, you just have to come in, just pretend you haven't done anything before. Mm-hmm. This is your new, like, you are starting complete slate. You are a first-time teacher, because it really is truly a very different situation. Again, I don't have that experience down south, but I think you need to figure out what works for you and what works for the students and what works for the people that are around you.
100%. This is a pretty relaxed environment. Like, what is your philosophy on dress attire for staff at the school?
When growing up, we always had, the teachers at my schools had jean Fridays, where like they'd like give a toonies to a charity or something, and they'd wear their jeans and they'd put the sticker on that said something like I'm wearing jeans because I supported this or whatever. I don't think the way you dress really determines who you are as a teacher. Obviously, you're not showing up looking like super sloppy, because then you're not showing the students necessarily, I guess, that you're taking everything super seriously. But like, I, from day to day, I'll wear a hoodie and joggers, and that's fine. But like, I'm not showing up in a crop top or something like necessarily inappropriate in that sense. But other than that, like, I remember in teachers college, like, other people would be like, oh, it must be nice to be phys ed, like you can just wear like workout clothes and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, that's what I wear now, and I'm only in the gym one period a day. So I don't know. It doesn't. I think a lot of aspects of education in the South are just a little bit more serious than they need to be. Go by our first names here, and I love it 100%. I've had conversations with my friends that teach in the South. I'm like, it's just not necessary for people to look at me and say Miss Lake. Mm-hmm. You can call me Sam. Like, we can be like just kind of chill. Like, that doesn't need to be as strict. I don't know. Like,
it depends on like your perspective. Like, if we're a community, I'm sort of the older brother, like, I'm here to show you some knowledge on what I know. I'm here to give you my gifts. First name basis is perfect. I guess some people get caught in their ego. They're like, I earned my degree. Yeah. I did everything right. I deserve a little bit of respect and authority. You should respect my demands. And so
that's an authority thing.
Yeah, 100%. What is there a high demand for dress attire at the elementary school?
Nope, there is not. And I'm somebody who likes to dress nice. But like, I enjoy it, especially in the winter. In the winter, there's nothing like you want to do more than roll out of bed and like put a different pair of comfy pants on. Like, I do not want to put on like something nice in the winter, because I'm like, I just want to be comfy. And I've started to really appreciate the idea that if I wake up, I can dress nice if I want to. Like, there's no one who's going to say a single thing to me, but then I can just wear the leggings. I can wear the hoodie. And what kind of put it in perspective, like, I was thinking about this. I was like, teacher clothes, like fancy teacher clothes, for like kind of lack of a better term, in the South, like, those are expensive. Like, getting a nice teacher wardrobe costs money. I think about like teachers here. I'm like, when do you go down to Winnipeg to shop at a store with clothing? Do you want to be spending all your money on nice teacher clothing when it doesn't really affect how you do your job, how you go about your daily life? So it's just been one of those things where, like Sam said, it doesn't affect your job. Like, I mean, you're not wearing a crop top and wearing anything like inappropriate, but just being comfy and still showing up to work and doing your job is like way more important than what you wear.
Feel good, play good.
Yeah.
That is the philosophy my old football team had. Did you have a similar philosophy?
Yeah, we were big, like, look good, feel good, play good. We always did all the braids in the hair before you played rugby. So yeah, those were definitely terms that were thrown around.
Do rugby players wear the face paint?
No, I think is that like a baseball thing for like sun, and I think it's a sun thing, right?
I don't think it's scientific. I guess the philosophy was the black draws in the most amount of light, and so if it draws in the most amount of light below your eyes, it's not going into your eyes.
Whoa!
But that's not proven?
No.
Oh.
No, it's not.
Oh.
But it's more for looks now.
Okay.
But back in the day, in the 50s, I don't know when they started it, but they had no clue. But it looks cool. I did it in high school.
We have no helmets, so it would just be off our face so quickly.
Right.
We're just always rubbing in the faces, I guess. I don't know.
Right in the grass.
Yeah.
The attire here. So what's your attire like in the morning when you go to school? Like how much PPE, protective equipment, do you need to put on your body before you walk to school?
What season are we talking?
Let's say January 28th.
Everything's covered. My face. I'm not a goggle girl.
No.
I should be, because I'm worried about getting old and getting wrinkly and all these things happening to me, so I should be a goggle girl, but my pride. I'm like, no, I already covered my whole face, and these people are walking around with nothing on their faces, like, so. But everything's covered: hat, mitts, my yappa, my wind pants, my boots.
How thick is your coat?
Pretty thick.
Did you get it from down south or up here?
No, it's up here. I came here with. And we need to figure out. I came here. This man who'd worked up here told me I needed a Canada Goose jacket. So I went out, little old Bailey, like,
How much are those?
$1,500, Ryan. I just graduated from like my BEd. I was like, this was like some extra CERB money that I ended up having to pay back. You know what I mean? That I'm like, I think my parents helped me out. I think I had to pay for it on 2 cards. Like I was like, $1,500 for this jacket.
Right.
I think I've worn it less than 20 times because I came up here and I was like, I can get a jacket made here that's way cuter. So I have this stinking stupid can of coat. If anyone wants to buy it, I'll sell it to you for $1,000. Okay, it's extra small women's expedition.
Like new quality.
Oh my god, like brand new. And the kids are making fun of me for the fur because it's like this like puny little coyote that doesn't even go around the whole thing, right? So what's the point of it? So I'm like, this is so embarrassing. This man who told me to buy this stupid jacket, I'm so embarrassed.
Right. If you compare the two, there's a huge difference between authentic and the commercial made.
And there's a reason why they still continue to make their parkas here. You know what I mean? Like there's like
they're more effective.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a parka, Sam?
I do. I have 2 parkas. I made a parka. I made a hunting parka.
How? Okay, so what was? How did you assemble into that opportunity?
A lot of tears.
I did it for PD one year. I really want to get some more of those like cultural artistic skills down to teach my class. I'm not fluent enough yet to teach my class 100%. I think every time I was so close to making a vest because every time I sewed the sleeve on, I would show the kind lady that was teaching us how to make them, and she would say, no, take it off, try again. And it must have been 6 to 8 times. And I did take a walk and a cry at one point, but we made it through. And now every time I wear that parka and anytime I see anybody with a homemade parka, I can just truly appreciate the work that went into that. And it's not that hard for the people that can just crank one out in an afternoon. And I'm just, there's so much respect there. Yeah.
So impressive.
This is the last question I have for the both of you is, because of all the day-to-day problems and because your work ethic is so strong, it's the only way to survive up here. How do you stay motivated?
I don't know. I don't have that many. I haven't hit this big lull yet where I haven't been motivated, and I'm probably pretty lucky in that sense. Again, cliche, but the kids just really make it for me. Like, there'll be some days where I'm like, I think I should just stay home today. I'll take a day. I need that for myself mentally. But then I'm like, the best part about my day is just kind of hanging out with the kids sometimes, like being around the students. So I keep busy. I don't really have enough time to like get in these lulls where I'm not motivated. I don't know. I'm pretty lucky that I haven't really got to a place where I'm like, I need to find a motivation right now.
Heck yeah.
So far, anyway. Let's knock on wood, but yeah.
Sam is self-sufficient.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. I remember, so my first year here was COVID, and we went into that 4-month lockdown, and it was very, like, anyways, I've had previous roommates and previous people who've worked here, and it's just, there's an element of like, I don't know that they have the internal motivation and the internal happiness. So it doesn't really matter. Like, there's a lot of people, I think, who seek motivation from outside sources and who seek happiness and contentment from outside sources. And I think until you have those things within yourself to a certain extent, I know that you always need help from the outside and help from other people and help from things you do. But until you have those things like kind of on the inside figured out for yourself, I like a lot of my stuff just comes from like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I always tell it to people. People are like, when are you going to leave? I was like, well, when I'm having a bad time, like with anything else, right? If there comes to a point where I'm not motivated and I'm not happy and I'm miserable, like I can't even like dig deep for it, I think that's when I'll know that it's time to move on to like another adventure, another situation. But I don't know, I really like my colleagues. I really love the students. Like Sam is my roommate, and I'm very happy that Sam's my roommate because I know that, and it's nice that we don't work at the same school. I really find that kind of like we go home and we kind of are able to debrief with one another from like this unbiased perspective of like, this happened at her school today, which is totally separate from my school. This happened at my school. We're able to share, give a little advice, just kind of an ear to listen.
It seems like you know how to be good roommates to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got it pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
It's worked out very well.
We watched the same show. And that really helps because I was in different situations my first couple years. You know what? That has a lot to do with it. Your living situation can really affect, I think, your mental and things like that. Like, regardless if I have a terrible day at school one day, I know that I'm coming back to Sam, and I know that we're gonna like watch TV and we're gonna get along, and I'm like always happy to be around her. Whereas if you have a terrible day, because terrible days are inevitable, right? Things don't go your way, so you're gonna have a bad day. It's like
expect them.
If you don't, there's something wrong with you. I don't know. If you don't have a bad day, I don't know.
Okay, you're
what's
perfect.
Going on. So
and get out.
So like if you, because then if you have a terrible day and then you're going home to a situation that you're not like, that's a little more tense, or you don't have that same like familial happiness about going home, that really makes things tough. And again, roommate situations you can't necessarily control here. That's a whole other podcast topic that could go on. But so that might also, that could impact it, like outside of your job, because job and home are not necessarily as separate as they are in other places. But I don't know. I like my roommate. I like my job. I remind myself that I'm enjoying, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
We need more educators like you both. I hope this podcast recruits the right people like you both. Thank you for coming on this episode.
Thanks for having us.
Our recruitment suggestion is anyone coming out of BEd Teachers College. If you have an open mind, if you're up for adventure, if you don't have a fixed mindset, if you are young, handsome
She's got
men.
a few extra. 6 foot, blonde hair.
But no,
250.
like not
Husband
having,
hunting.
not having like that kind of, not that experience is bad at all, but not having this expectation of what it should be is really, this is a great place to start your career. Genuinely, like from both of us, even you, correct? Is this kind of where you started?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was a first aider before I moved up here.
Yeah. So I'm like, and look at us and our success. So I'm like, I think we need more of us.
And we're out.
Woo!
Good job.